I've been asked by many people over the past couple of years to do transition pictures for comedian Benny Hill. He died in 1992 of heart congestion. He was a very, very sad case, actually, for somebody with such an illustrious career. He came out of the army in World War II and went into the British music hall scene. From there, he migrated into radio, where he was okay, but I don't think he was very successful in radio. It's only when he got onto television that his brand of visual humor and all the rest got noticed, and he became very, very famous. He was also in movies. He was in Those Magnificent Men in Their Flying Machines and The Italian Job and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, so he had that career going on too. And he even had a #1 single in England for about 4 weeks. It was at #1. Ernie, the fastest milkman in the West. He was just very successful, and he was on independent television, not the BBC in Britain, independent television for about 20 years. It was all about women with big breasts and chasing women and women stripping down to their bikinis and so on. It was, by the time television got into the 90s, looking incredibly old-fashioned. A new wave of comedians came along, like Ben Elton, Harry Enfield, French and Saunders, and they showed that you didn't have to objectify women in order to be funny and to be successful. And Benny Hill got cancelled as a result. But he was a single guy. Many people accused him of being gay, but we have no proof of that. He was a single guy, and his career was his life. He didn't have a home of his own. He rented. He didn't have a car. He walked everywhere. He even lugged his own shopping back to his house from the supermarket, apparently. And even though his shows became a massive success in America eventually, long after he was successful in Britain, and he died with a fortune of about $18 million or something like that, he seemed to be a very isolated, unhappy man without his career. He had many, many good things going for him, but he didn't seem happy at the end. And he was found at the age of 68, slumped in front of the television in an armchair, and he had died. And so I thought, yeah, that's kind of an interesting story. And I went into his energy. Initially, there was a hole, a very tight hole, that his inflated body, which looked a bit like a Hershey's Kiss, wouldn't go through. It was like it had a screw on it, and he couldn't screw himself through the hole. You know, like a hot water bottle has a screw top. Half of him was underneath and half of him was on top. He seemed to be ill or on the verge of death for quite a time. And indeed, he was due to have some kind of heart operation, I think, but had refused it for some reason, like a heart bypass. But he wouldn't go through this hole. And eventually he did, but it involved him bursting out of the hole underneath. It was almost like he, if I can put it this way, defecated himself out of his own body, leaving the pretend self, the inflated self, the false self behind, to allow the real self to fall. And he fell hard. There were spurs sticking out of the walls. And he went down and landed in this symbolic cave I always see, in a pool of sludge, complaining the whole way. Oh, well, of course it would happen to me, wouldn't it? He was resentful. Maybe there was lingering bitterness over the cancellation of his show, his life's work. But there were also secrets here, shame, regrets. Maybe he was gay. Hence the overcompensation of constantly ogling women and chasing busty women and so on. But there were secrets, and there was shame, and there was regret, and ingratitude. So much going on inside of this guy. He had shed his outer self. He was a chubby guy, big bone guy. Maybe that was the issue too. He'd shed that on the way down. You don't take your body, your weight with you. But there was still a certain sense of shame, fear of what people would say when he landed in the sludge. And he stood up and it was coating him. It's like, look at me. How can I go forward like this? Have you seen this? More shame. More fear of what people will say. He took the coating off his legs. He cleaned himself and looked over at the metaphorical tunnel that I always see in this situation, which links the meet and greet phase to the light that everybody seems to go into before ascension. He looked up the tunnel and thought, I can't go up there. Look at me. Just look. And the interesting thing was that just look at me. Shame, regret, embarrassment, and so on changed to just look at me. Look at me. Acknowledge me. See me for who I am inside, not what I present to you on the outside. He was still in ego mode, still thinking that the universe, God, whatever, sees the outer self, when in fact only humans see the outer self. He was scared to show humans, but also God, the inner self. Such was the level of shame and fear and regret and his secrets, maybe. Look at me. See me for who I am. He needed acknowledgement of his worth, that he belonged, because he couldn't endorse his own self-worth. Hence his need for attention when he was in form. Endorse me, validate me, tell me I have worth. And when he went up the tunnel, he plodded like, I don't deserve this. I'm not ready. And he gets to the top of the tunnel and he can't believe that the light is as bright as it is. He doesn't feel deserving of this kind of welcome, but it's actually face-searingly bright. There's a heat of acceptance that comes from grace, apparently, that lets you know that whoever you are, you're part of the whole. But he was not able to accept this. And it's almost like the light had to shine brighter in order to make up for the dimness of his own personal light. And eventually he disappeared because he had no choice. The light, grace, embraced him and said, come on, you'll get to believe that you're worthwhile. I remember Oprah once saying in one of her shows, if you have a secret that you're hiding from the world, you can't succeed, because that secret will always hound you and stop you being successful. And I thought that was true when I heard it. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. Now I'm wondering if it's true, because what happens if the universe goes, okay, keep your secret, and I'm going to make you incredibly famous, incredibly successful. You're going to have everything you could possibly want, but you are going to undermine every aspect of that success because you keep this secret inside. Or because you can't let certain emotions out, or you can't show your real, authentic self to the world. That's the deal that Benny Hill's soul made with the world, it seems to me. Can you be authentic? Can you be unashamed of who you are at a soul level? Can you be raw and open and real? Or are you going to continue this pretense, this fakery that earns you so much money and all the accolades and a global reputation, but leaves you hollow on the inside, where your heart should be alive and vibrant? We all need to belong, to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be loved, to be considered as part of a tribe, a community, the human race. But we deny ourselves that, I think, if we don't step up and show our true selves to the world, to the tribe, to the community. We defeat ourselves by not feeling worthy, not owning who we are. And that's what I learned from Benny Hill.